If you're watching this, then you're ready to start designing and creating your landscape challenge project. This is the big 100-point project that we're ending our Illustrator knowledge with. So a landscape, let's talk about this. Your objective is to use your skills that you've acquired this semester so far to illustrate a landscape. It could be a true landscape where you see multiple levels of ground going off in the distance to mountains, whatever. It could also be, I'm okay with, a cityscape. The image to your left is a wonderful student project from 2020. He was a Star Wars fan like me, and so he gave the feeling of depth in this city area because some things are closer, some things are going off in the distance, and other things are silhouetted way off in the distance. So he's understanding and showing the sense of depth and going off back in space. He's just doing it with a city rather than just a pure landscape. Can I work from one found image online? No, that's plagiarism. Does my image need to be of a real place? No, you can bring different elements in and kind of make your own space. That's what he did here with the Star Wars references. How many pictures do I need to bring in and turn into templates and draw on top of for my picture? Well, at least 3. Some people may have more than that, but you can't have any less. If you have less than 3, then we're kind of on the edge of gray area of plagiarizing. So the more things that you can bring in that, like, hey, I want to draw this ship like he did here. I want to draw this ship here. I want to draw some of these buildings of that particular city there. So you start to make what we call a composite. You will create a composite all of your own, so it is original to you, and the more pictures you can bring in and draw different objects, the more it's going to become yours. Good? What you need. You should, like I said, work from a minimum of at least 3 photos that you download from online. You're going to turn each photo or resource that you have into a template layer, right? That means you double click it, you select it as a template, and you change it to like 70% so that then it locks it and you're drawing on top of it only what you want to transfer, right? I'm not saying you have to draw the whole picture. If you like a spaceship, if you like a certain building, if you like a silhouette of something off in the distance, then you are then transferring and drawing only that on a new layer. You'll need to use a minimum of 4 layers in your layers. Keep in mind that we want to feel depth. So you're going to illustrate objects that are up close, some objects that are in the middle, some objects in the background, and then you have something that represents sky or space. Here's some ways that you can kind of show depth in a landscape or an image. Some sneaky things, such as if you overlap shapes, you can overlap and begin to see that one shape is from in front of another one. That gives us the sense of obviously going off into the distance. The other option is to change the sizes of things as they go back. That doesn't always make sense. Sometimes there's bigger buildings off in the distance than there are up close, but this is one general idea. You can line things up as they disappear off into the horizon. The horizon is where we see the land or the surface of a planet stop and the sky starts. Another thing is the colors could change as they're going off in the distance. Things in the distance tend to get a little bit grayer, less clear. Here's some examples of just photos that show some of these ideas. Here are the objects getting smaller off in the distance, right? Here are things lined up in perspective, shrinking as they go back to that ultimate horizon line where the surface is versus the sky. Look at this one. This object here is huge. The tree is big. It's closest to us. It's framing the picture. And then things get a little smaller and smaller as you go back. Here's an example of the colors changing we just saw. Darker, richer. They get a little bit grayer, grayer, lighter and grayer, lighter and grayer as you go back. So those ideas can play out to show depth. Say that you're looking for images for inspiration and things to trace online. When you go on to your Google search and you type in images, say I'm looking for city streets, and I type in city streets, okay? You need to click on the tools icon and then come down to where it says size. You need to choose large. Well, why do I have to choose large? I'm so glad you asked. Because we're drawing on a large space. Your design space is going to be 11 inches by 17 inches wide. That's a wide, big space. So we need to work with some bigger pictures. If your picture is 2 inches by 2 inches and you're trying to enlarge the picture so you can draw on top of it, your picture is going to get fuzzy and you won't be able to see what you're drawing. Okay, so clicking tools in your search and large will find you bigger images to work with. Okay, once you find that image and you click on it, it will give you a thumbnail. And I ask that you right click on that thumbnail and tell it to open in a new tab on the internet. Only after it opens in a new tab will it be the nice big picture that you need. At that point, you can right click and tell it to open and save it so that you can bring it into Illustrator. Okay, come back to these instructions if you need to see it again, all right, where to click and what to work with. The setup. Here are all the information things that you need to set up your brand new document, okay? It absolutely, positively needs to be in inches. Too many times people do not change the measurement and their picture is microscopically small. You've got to choose inches. But before you choose everything else, look at the order. You're clicking New for a new document. You're choosing Print from the menu at the top. Then you're going to work with the sizes. You title it Landscape and your last name. You make sure that it's set for our colors of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black so I can print it as close to your colors as possible. And you hit Create and you're ready to start. Remember, after you do File, Place, and you put the picture in there, you need to resize it. So hold down the Shift key while you shrink it or enlarge it to the size that you need. Then you've got to turn it into a template. Double click behind the name, hit Template, change it to 70 or 75, and click OK. So that photo dulls a little bit and it locks it so you can't draw on it. This is just an example of one of my drawings that I'm doing. It's sort of in progress. At this point, I've already used some things from this photo, especially some of these little guys right there. I traced some of them. Let's see. From this one here was kind of different buildings were part of my skyline and my second skyline. And then down here you can see I use these areas and those, that column, and I kind of made copies of things. I still have this big space in the middle that I still need to do a little something with. But I've got close up, I've got a little bit in the middle, I've got something in there toward the background, some layered skyline, and then I have my sky, right? So I'm still working on mine. Remember the lessons we've learned. Use and recall as many of these things as you can. Making shapes, right? How to alter a shape with your direct selection tool. Change and round things off if you need to with the widgets. Use your pen tool, all right, if you're on your desktop, to make something curvy or odd. If you're going to work on your iPad as well, then use the pencil tool that we've learned how to practice with. Color changes happen with depth, and so that's when we start to work with a little bit of gradients. You'll notice in this middle picture here, the sun and the desert and the hills going off, there's gradient on the sun itself. That one is a radial one. There's a gradual change here going up to the moon, right? And that's going to be sort of the linear gradient. You might want to have color be different in slightly different areas. That's using the freeform gradient. So using some of those skills from your gradient lesson can add to the sense of depth. Reminders. If you have multiple shapes of the same color, merge them together. You never know when you have to move something, and you don't want to have to move 30 shapes that make up one big object. Highlight them, use the shape builder, and merge all of those together that are the same. Here's the rubric, just so you have an understanding of things that we're challenging you to and what you're graded on. 1, did you set up the document right? 2, have you worked with multiple layers in your work and on your layers? Shape building, editing, creating, how'd you work with your tool usage that you know? Did you show depth? Maybe foreground, middle ground, background, in the sky. How did you use colors to make us feel the depth through some gradients, light colors, and dark colors? Did you properly save the files when you were done? Did you follow the directions both verbally and those that are written? Then you start getting into your saves. All right, and so I give those suggestions all through here for saving. All right, again, this is our last big hurrah in Illustrator before we jump into Photoshop. So congratulations, and stick to this as your instructions and guide to get started.